Hello, I'm Esther Guido-Ewart. It's Friday, January 13th. This is Africa 54.
The Ethiopian army announces the withdrawal of a regional force from a key city in Tigray, meeting another step in the peace process with Tigrayan leaders. After years of being teased and taunted, Nigeria's female bouncers are proud of their bodies and their profession. And in our Friday entertainment, we'll take you to our New York studio, where Heather Maxwell talks with the legendary Ghanaian duo, the Mandingo Ambassadors. All that and much more coming up on Africa 54.
The Ethiopian army has announced the withdrawal of a regional force from a key Tigrayan city under a peace deal to end 2 years of war. The announcement comes as 2 European ministers met with Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed in Addis Ababa. Viewers Paul Ndiho has more.
The French and German foreign ministers visited Ethiopia on Thursday, one day after the Tigrayan forces announced they were starting to surrender their heavy weapons, a vital component of the November 2nd agreement to silence the guns in the East African nation. The Ethiopian army says the Amhara Special Forces, a regional force that had backed the government in the war, had withdrawn from the strategic Tigray city of Shire, meeting another crucial part of the peace deal. During a joint press conference in Addis Ababa, German and French foreign minister cautioned that a reconciliation does not happen overnight. Both called for accountability in the peace process.
And precisely because we in Europe again have to experience what war and the most brutal crimes against humanity mean. The question of accountability is important for us with a view to Ethiopia's future and the peace process, but also to strengthen international law.
The conflict in northern Ethiopia between the federal government and the Tigray People's Liberation Front has claimed untold lives. French Foreign Minister Catherine Corona says peace is now at hand.
Believe me, like Annalena, I am well aware of the courage it took, both for the federal government and the Tigrayan leaders, to choose peace. For it takes courage and even vision to make that choice.
Both ministers were in the country to promise their government support for rebuilding the war-affected areas in Ethiopia. The ministers met with the Deputy Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Demeke Mekonnen, who says the country is committed to the peace process.
This is a new chapter. This is time to settle our internal crisis and focus on our development and transformation.
Earlier, Ethiopian Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed greeted the French and German foreign ministers in Addis Ababa. The devastating conflict that erupted in November 2020 has killed untold civilians, displaced more than 2 million, and left millions in more need of humanitarian aid. Following the peace agreement signing in Pretoria, South Africa, there has been a limited resumption of deliveries to Tigray, which is facing dire shortages of food, fuel, cash, and medicines. Also being restored to Tigray, a region of 6 million people, are essential services such as communications, banking, and electricity, which was cut off during the fighting. Paul Ndiho, VOA News, Washington.
Emotions ran high as a woman testified to a Swiss court that a former Liberian rebel commander raped her repeatedly during the country's civil war. Deirdre Murray McIntosh has more.
A victim testified to a Swiss court that a former Liberian rebel commander had raped her repeatedly during the country's civil war. Her testimony was heard on the first day of Aliou Kassai's appeal to overturn 22 convictions for war crimes. Kassai was a rebel commander fighting against former President Charles Taylor's army in the 1990s. In 2021, he was sentenced to 20 years in prison in Switzerland's first ever war crimes trial. Swiss prosecutors also arguing that he also committed crimes against humanity, which could increase his 20-year sentence if convicted is upheld and he is found guilty on these counts. The public left the courtroom to allow the victim, who said she was raped by Kassai at the age of 14, to continue her testimony. "If I didn't go, he would have killed me. He forced me 4 times, she told the court. Kassai told the court he had never met the woman. His lawyer says he was not present when the war crimes were allegedly committed. The rebel commander was arrested in Switzerland, where he had been living in 2014. Swiss law allows for prosecution for serious crimes committed anywhere under the principle of universal jurisdiction. Thousands of people were mutilated and raped during Liberia's back-to-back wars between 1989 and 2003 in clashes that involved drugged fighters and child soldiers conscripted by warlords. But unlike neighboring Sierra Leone, which had its own civil war at the same time and later held war crime trials, no prosecutions had taken place in Liberia. The victims testifying in Switzerland have asked for autonomy for fear of reprisal. Some former warlords still hold major positions in the country. The court will later hear a man who alleged he witnessed Kassai eat slices of a man's heart, and another who accuses him of stabbing him and ordering killings. Deirdre Murray McIntosh, VOA News.
Nigeria is set to hold its presidential election on February 25th amid security concerns posed by insurgent groups such as Boko Haram. For more insight on Nigeria's situation ahead of the vote, I'm joined live via Skype from London by Bulama Bukarti, a senior fellow in the Extremism Policy Unit at the Tony Blair Institute. Mr. Bukarti, welcome to Africa 54.
No, thank you. Thank you for having me.
We're learning that the Nigeria's Independent Election Commission has already expressed its concerns about the security situation before the vote, and it's been turned down. But how serious is this concern?
Look, the concern was expressed by an official of the Electoral Commission who represented the chairman at a public gathering. But the commission has since then been trying to backtrack from the statement, obviously under pressure from the federal government. But let's face it, Nigeria's 2023 elections would be the most challenged security-wise in the history of Nigeria. And that's because there are 3 major security concerns facing the country, the most important of them being non-state armed groups, 3 of which are the major actors in different parts of Nigeria. Number 1, there is Boko Haram, a group claiming to fight for Islam, which has been unleashing violence in Nigeria for the past 12 years, and they have killed over 370,000 Nigerians, according to the United Nations. Number 2, there is a separatist group operating in the southeastern part of Nigeria and the south-south geopolitical zone that has been targeting the Electoral Commission's offices and materials. And then in the north central and the northwestern part of Nigeria, there is a gang of about 30,000 criminal gangs that are locally called bandits, who have been abducting people and extorting ransoms, and have extorted ransom of over millions of dollars over the past 10 years and have killed over 10,000 people. In terms of Boko Haram, one of the pillars of their ideology is to disrupt Nigeria's elections. And they have tried in the past, for example, in 2015, they were able to force Nigeria's elections to be delayed by 6 weeks. And now this group has expanded from the northeast to north central Nigeria and northwestern Nigeria, and we know they are going to step up attacks around the elections.
But tell me how the social media is being used right now to influence this election and discuss other issues, because we know right now this is the time. The social media is hot in Nigeria.
Yeah, social media obviously has helped Nigeria's democratization process by democratizing information sharing and, of course, information consumption. But unfortunately, it is playing a big role in the fake news conspiracy theories industries. And already you would see lots of videos and photos that are going viral on social media about the different candidates of the political parties on things that are later found to be lies. We know that disinformation is going to disrupt Nigeria's election, unfortunately, and it may be able to flame the embers of unrest in the country, especially when you have people making unsubstantiated allegations on social media, and because there are no editors, no publishers to screen them out, it means anything get consumed. And unfortunately, some of what is being spread has no evidence, but is deeply believed by people who consume that kind of information. And so social media is going to be a big challenge for the elections.
Maybe in 15 seconds, how are the presidential candidates addressing these security concerns ahead of the vote?
No, I mean, all of them have security as the #1 priority in their agenda, but unfortunately, we know politicians sometimes don't stand by their promises. But what complicates issues further is that one of the key threat to the election itself are politicians, unscrupulous politicians who use thugs and who incite people to commit violence in places where they know they cannot win. And also we know that election results could be a flashpoint for violence, as it had happened in 2011 when 800 Nigerians were killed in the wake of election results.
Right. Mr. Burkati, thank you so much for your insight into this topic. We'll get back to you before the election happens. Bulama Burkati is a senior fellow in the Extremism Policy Unit at the Tony Blair Institute. For years, Imam Thomas' body drew snarky remarks from slimmer classmates in southern Nigeria that shattered her confidence and natural affability after years of being teased and taunted growing up. Thomas has now found a niche that values what she now proudly describes as her plus-sized body. Fiona Jones reports.
My name is Imam Thomas.
We are Dragon Squad.
They are a team of Nigeria's female bouncers, the Dragon Squad Limited. Founded in 2018, the group only employs women of a certain weight and shape, creating a safe space for plus-sized women to excel in a field that is traditionally male-dominated.
I realize that women can do more, we are strong, we can do the men's job too.
The group is the brainchild of MM Thomas. She says for years her body drew snarky comments from slimmer classmates that shattered her confidence. But then she found a niche that values what Thomas now proudly describes as her plus-sized body type.
I first of all look at the physical, the body size, since my team is all about plus-size ladies. If you have the plus-size body, that's cool for me, before I now talk about your passion and other qualification of yours.
The Dragon Squad 43 recruits have worked security at about 2,000 events, including house parties, funerals, political rallies and club nights.
Give me this thing.
23-year-old Peace Vigorous is the youngest of the crew.
Before I joined Dragon's work, I was thinking women could only do tailoring work, maybe hairdressers, sell things in the market, or probably sit at home like housewife. But after I joined, I realized that women can do more, we are strong, we can do the men's job too.
In addition to walkie-talkies, boots and dark glasses, the bouncers carry pepper spray. Thomas says the risk of being molested on the job is real, and that's when training helps. Women have acquired skills, strength, and most importantly for Thomas, confidence.
We have our skill, which one of them is executive insult, as we call. So when crisis is about to happen, we apply that system and everywhere is calm and we are able to control the situation till the event is over.
The Dragon Squad has also led Thomas to advocate for the rights of girls and women. Gender violence is rife in Nigeria, which has one of the world's highest rates of sexual assault. For Thomas, change comes with breaking the barrier to show what women bring to all sectors of society. And for Dragon Squad's client, Obongibanga Ikpe, a female team have become a preferred choice.
In a few years, man must step aside. There will be fierce competition battle between the two genders, male and female. Then you, the customer, have to decide. Do I want a female school squad? That's what I wanted. And you have to decide which one do you want. For me, I prefer to sing by women.
That was Fiona Jones of Reuters reporting. Power cuts in South Africa are getting worse as struggling state utility Eskom says it will extend its worst ever outages until further notice. Olivia Chan has the details.
South African power cuts worsened this week as struggling state utility Eskom said it would extend its worst ever outages until further notice. The government announced on Thursday that it will take on a portion of Eskom's debt. The utility company has been mired in financial crisis for years and is dependent on government bailouts. The National Treasury said at October's midterm budget that it could take on between 1/3 and 2/3 of Eskom's over $23 billion debt to try to make the company financially viable. The Stage 6 power cuts mean 6 to 8 hours a day without power for most South Africans and require up to 6,000 megawatts of capacity to be shed from the national grid. They are a major source of public frustration with the governing African National Congress Party. Its support among voters is sliding. The power cuts are also a brake on economic growth in Africa's most industrialized nation. Eskom supplies the vast majority of South Africa's electricity, relying mainly on an aging fleet of coal-fired power stations that are unreliable and prone to faults. The country witnessed more than 200 days of power cuts in 2022, and the situation could get even worse in 2023. Since taking office in 2018, President Cyril Ramaphosa has been trying to reform debt-laden Eskom to make it more efficient, but progress has been slow.
That was Olivia Chan of Reuters reporting. The United Nations has launched an appeal for funds to aid 30 million children suffering from acute malnutrition in countries affected by the ongoing food crisis, according to the website africanews.com. The UN says that more than 30 million children in the 15 most seriously affected countries are suffering from acute malnutrition. Skyrocketing food prices are aggravating food shortages. Still to come, a sweet musical treat from Heather Maxwell showcasing two legendary guitar kings of Guinean music. We'll be right back.
We witness a record number of women running for political seats across Africa. However, only a few of them got elected. The same scenario repeated itself across the diaspora in major countries such as Brazil and the US, home to the largest Black communities in the world. On this week's Our Voices, we'll have a look at the representation of African women and women of African descent in politics. We will hear from experts and advocates on why women's political participation is critical for democracy. Join the conversation each week, right here on Our Voices.
In other news, South Africa's presidency has announced Friday that anti-apartheid activist Vriend Ginwala, the Speaker of South Africa's first democratic elected parliament and the first woman to hold the office, has died at 90. Public workers in Ghana are pleased on Friday after the government and trade unions agreed to increase their salaries by 30% this year. The move is retroactive to January 1st and comes as the country struggles to reduce debt and tackle rampant inflation. And Morocco's High Commission for Planning says economic growth in the North African nation is expected to recover to 3.3% in 2023 after 1.3% in 2022. It says the growth is being driven by domestic demand. U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland has named a special counsel to investigate how classified government documents ended up being stored at a former Washington office of President Joe Biden and at his Wilmington, Delaware home. VOA's Laura Bowman reports.
It's been an embarrassing week for the White House since news broke that classified documents were found in November at a Washington think tank where President Joe Biden had worked after serving as vice president. And today, the White House announced that more documents had been found at a Biden residence in Delaware. The Democratic president spoke Thursday, saying his lawyers had gone in search of the classified papers and turned them over.
As I said earlier this week, people know I take classified documents and classified material seriously. I also said we're cooperating fully and completely with the Justice Department's review.
But Republican leaders were quick to cry foul, saying Democrats had gone after former President Donald Trump hard while the FBI was searching his Florida Mar-a-Lago home and removing classified documents from it. This after Trump left the presidency. Newly elected Republican Speaker of the House of Representatives, Kevin McCarthy, said this about President Biden.
Here's an individual that's been in office for more than 40 years. Here's an individual that sat on 60 Minutes that was so concerned about President Trump's documents locked in behind, and now we find it just as a vice president, keeping it for years out in the open in different locations.
A special counsel is investigating whether Trump committed a criminal offense in failing to turn over classified material, especially after repeated requests from the National Archives and a subpoena from the Department of Justice. Thursday, Attorney General Merrick Garland said the Justice Department was also appointing a special counsel to investigate classified documents found in Biden's care.
This appointment underscores for the public the department's commitment to both independence and accountability in particularly sensitive matters, and to making decisions indisputably guided only by the facts and the law.
U.S. law says that classified documents from presidencies go to the National Archives and not elsewhere. Laurel Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
We wrap up this week with entertainment. Heather Maxwell has more from New York.
Hey everybody. One of Brooklyn's hidden musical gems is a little place called Barbez. It's a club, and every Wednesday night there's a band called the Mandingo Ambassadors who play there. They've been playing for 13 years. This is a wonderful secret, and I have the two leaders of that band right here in the studio in our New York bureau, Mamadi Kouyaté and Mamadi Kourouma. Hello.
Yes.
Welcome to VOA and Music Time in Africa.
Thank you, madam.
So last Wednesday, as you know, I came to hear you perform at Barbez, and I just was blown away at the whole band, but especially the two of you and the way you play so perfectly together. It makes me want to know, how long have you been playing together?
Mamadi and me, we play 15 years together, from Guinea to here. But the band, I have 13 years. The band I formed in New York, because we have American people and Guinean people together. But I teach the 100% Mandingo music for everybody. Mandingo rhythm, Mandingo guitar, the classic music from West Africa, Guinea. We play together.
Would you play something for us?
Yeah.
Be sure to visit Heather Maxwell's YouTube channel, Music Time in Africa. Good night from Washington.